Michigan voters go to the polls this November, and CMU Public Broadcasting again brings you Meet the Candidates, the election year series that gives you the chance to meet those seeking state and national office.
Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas. We welcome this time Bobbie Walton, the Democratic candidate for the 14th Senate District in this year's election. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to our program.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
In our first few moments, we want all of our guests to be able to share some of the personal information about you, your hometown, and the experience that you bring to the campaign.
Oh my hometown. I've lived very many places. I grew up in Chicago. That makes me a Midwesterner. I spent a year in California, 10 years in Texas, a year in Louisiana, 2.5 years in Tennessee, 24 years in Maryland, and the last 6 years in Michigan.
Now, this 14th district, the seat that you are seeking in the Michigan Senate, this is not an open race this election, but it is a redrawn district from the 2010 and then following the census. So to give folks a sense of the area we're talking about, what exactly encompasses District 14?
It's a very strangely shaped district. It starts in Genesee County with Atlas Township, goes into Davison Township in the city of Davison, goes over to Grand Blanc and Mundy Township, and then goes south to the city of Fenton. Then it goes into Oakland County, and it's Holly Township, Rose Township, Highland Township, Brendan Township, Groveland Township, Springfield Township, and Waterford Township.
And for all those areas and townships and the parts of the counties you've been to, as you approach this campaign as a candidate and then the folks that you've had a chance to talk to, the prospective voters, what's being identified as the main issue or issues in this campaign?
It's sort of a mixed bag. When I first started campaigning about 7 months ago, which was in February and March, there was a lot of concern about the condition of the roads. And if you remember, everybody was complaining about potholes. And I had one voter that I talked to that complained that there were actually ducks swimming in the pothole in front of her house. It was so big and so deep. So that was a big issue. I haven't heard that issue lately. Lately, people are very concerned about what's happening with the economy, what's happening with the declining middle class, and what's happening with our schools. And I would say that of those, the one that seems to be most important is, of course, what's happening with our schools.
What specifically are they saying? Is it a funding question? Is it a curriculum type based question? What are they citing for you as the concerns that they have?
Well, I think the people who have children are, first of all, they're concerned about their own children because they want them to go to the best schools. And second of all, they're concerned somewhat about the fact that everything in the state of Michigan seems to be in turmoil regarding the schools, because the studies that have come out that show the charter schools and the fact that the charter schools don't seem to be accountable, and the fact that they also are not available to every child, it does concern some of the parents. But I think if they could be assured that the state is not trying to privatize the schools, to turn them into a money-making venture, as opposed to actually creating an educational environment for their kids, that seems to be of concern.
What then specifically, looking at the existence then of the charter school system that we have now, or to reform, restructure, what would be the suggestions that they're offering you? What are you beginning to form as your ideas for what you would want to take to Lansing to deal with that?
Well, I can't say that the voters that I've talked to have ideas. Many people are not part of the system. They don't understand how the system works. They don't understand the ramifications of what really happens. I have read and heard that the general idea is to put a cap back on the numbers of charter schools that are allowed and to hold them more accountable through their chartering institutions. The concern I heard from one voter yesterday was about the fact that there's confusion about what the role of the state school board has on this particular issue. And so I think there's more confusion than there is light.
You mentioned also on the general economic front, the situation, future of, or status of the middle class. What are people saying as to their level of concern? In what way?
Well, the people that I talk to, of course, and these are people that support me. I'm not averse to talking to people that don't support me. I'm quite willing to do that. But the people that support me are members of the declining middle class. I have had a large boost of support from labor unions and from people who are striving to increase the minimum wage and to make the minimum wage into a living wage. I was the past president of Michigan Now, so of course I'm very concerned about the impact of the economy on women and the fact that women in our state and in all the states are earning up to 3/4 less, or 3/4 of what men are earning. We usually have an event in April, which marks the day that we finally are making as much as the men had made the year before. So it's an economic issue for women, and I think that is what I'm hearing more than anything. The decline in the availability for affordable care for children, for women who are working. The fact that 66% of the people who are working for minimum wage are women. The fact that our government has taken away the child credit from our tax returns as a deduction has given women a little bit of a backward step, because when there was more child money available, it was easier for them to afford child care. I think the reduction in the earned income tax credit has done a lot to impact on the local economies, and of course a lot of the working people who were qualified for the earned income credit were women. It's a large issue.
Minimum wage, living wage, do they have a figure in mind? We all heard about the federal proposal of 10-10. We've heard of other places where some have wanted to take that level to 15, what they're terming more of and economies and economic distribution is different in different areas. But do people say we could do a lot better if we were making X? Do they have a range of figures in mind?
The people I talk to generally are not the people who are earning minimum wage. I think they're more concerned about the fact that when people don't have money in their pocket to spend, the local economy suffers, and people who already have jobs, and they may be working in retail, they may be working in an industry that relies upon people being able to buy their products, they're more concerned about the fact that the money is not there to stimulate the economy. So the people that I talk to are generally not the ones that are working at the Burger King. But I will tell you a story, and you may want to follow up on this one. About 2 weeks ago, there was a large protest in downtown Flint when Governor Snyder appeared for a large, well-funded fundraiser for his campaign. And I was down there because a lot of the people that I campaign with and I feel like are my supporters are the people who are most harmed by what is happening with his policies on the economy. I was walking around the farmer's market. It was right there at the farmer's market in Flint. And I spoke to a young security guard who was working at the gate of the parking lot where they were actually guarding the massive, very expensive cars that were coming into the driveway. And I asked him, I said, "Are you a member of the union?" And he said, "No, I am not." And I said, what are you being paid? What is your pay? And he said, "I'm earning minimum wage." And I said, "Well, you know, we're here for you." And I thought it was ironic that this particular scenario to me personifies exactly what's happening in our society. We have the people who have a lot of money and the very large, very expensive cars who are able to get together and spend a large amount of money to elect a person they support. And then we have this young man who is not earning enough to really pay for his own upkeep and probably has to rely on either help from others or even from us through our government. So to me, that was an illustration of exactly where the problem is.
Looking at that issue, and we have just a couple of minutes left, but if we look at the economics, the wage disparity, is there a singular policy that's in place right now or something within the tax structure that we have or something in the way that economic policy has been done that you would pinpoint as the first thing you would want to make a change to address these types of concerns?
Well, in my former life, I actually worked on a campaign to increase the wages for contractors who were working for the government. I worked in a county in Maryland as a chief of staff for a legislator in that county, and we worked on adopting a minimum wage, a living wage for the county contractors. And it was a very hard row. I would like to see the state of Michigan adopt a similar law where contractors who are working for the state would be paying a living wage. The living wage is defined as what it takes to support a family, usually a family of four, for a year, with all of their needs without any government assistance. The other thing I would do, and also in another of my iterations in a career, I was an auditor for the income tax service with the IRS, and so I had extensive training in income tax law. I think we need to revisit our tax policy in this state and bring it into a more progressive tax status where we may have 2 or 3 brackets of income tax, and we need to revisit the way that we treat small businesses regarding the tax base.
In our last half minute then, if you take the economic concerns, the education concerns, boil that down into the message then that you would want to leave with a singular voter, he or she in the 14th district asking for that vote, what would be the message you would leave with that voter?
I would leave with that voter the message that I would represent them and anybody who even didn't vote for me. One of my criticisms of the people that are serving in office is they often close the door on people who didn't vote for them or people that they know aren't supporting their policies. I would not do that. I think you need to have people who talk across the table. And I often tell people, if you're not sitting at the table, you're getting what falls on the floor. And I think that representation is the most important thing that I can bring to the people in my district, and that is an open door, an open mind, and a willingness to work to solve our problems.
Well, we do appreciate the time you've taken off of the campaign trail to address these issues in our forum here, and certainly wish you the best of luck with the rest of the campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks very much for your time and attention as well here on Meet the Candidates. We've been talking with Bobbie Walton, the Democratic candidate for the 14th district seat in the Michigan Senate for this year's election. As always, we encourage you to get out and exercise your right to vote on November 4th.
Thank you for joining us for Meet the Candidates. CMU Public Broadcasting invited both major party candidates for this office to participate in this series. Remember to go to the polls on Election Day.
Oh, and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, joined this time by Representative Rick Outman. He is the Republican representative for the 70th district seat in the Michigan House, and he is seeking a third term to that office. Representative, good to see you again. Welcome back.
You too, David. Thank you.
We take our first minute or two to have a chance to do as our title says, meet the candidates, and give some of the personal background experience that you bring to this campaign.
Okay. Well, I have been the state representative for the 70th district for the last 4 years. I'm seeking my second re-election, my third term, and it's been quite a ride. Very interesting because coming from a very non-political background, it feels like I was kind of thrown to the lion's den, and it feels like I've spent a lot of time just trying to keep up. And hopefully get ahead. It's getting easier as the terms go along. But it's been an interesting ride. I grew up in the Six Lakes area. At least 5 generations. We stopped counting past that because it seemed irrelevant at that point. And the owner of a 3rd generation small excavating company, Outman excavating. We've been in business since, 46, 47. My grandfather and my great uncle started it. And I served 3 years in the military, 6 months overseas in Beirut, 2 years in the Greenville National Guard unit, the 1073rd unit. I have a teaching degree from Grand Valley State University, no offense, CMU. And it's in biology and Spanish. And I coach wrestling and married for 25 years and 3 kids and 1 grandchild.
The 70th district that we talk about, that you're seeking re-election to, covers what? What counties, townships, portions of the area? Kind of get that map for us.
Well, originally when I was elected the first time, that was a redistricting year, but so when I came in, it was all of Montcalm, and it was northern Gratiot County, or northern Ionia County. It was 4 townships and really 2 cities, the city of Ionia and the city of Belding. And since then, I've traded my portion of Ionia for a portion of Gratiot County. I have 4 townships in Gratiot, Pine River, Seville, Bethany, and Emerson, the city of Elma, and the city of St. Louis. And it's a good fit for me. Not that I didn't enjoy Ionia. I spent a lot of time there building relationships and really gaining a lot of good friends. So it was kind of bittersweet to lose that portion of my district. But Gratiot really is more of my home. My mom grew up in Riverdale, and family ties there. The Riverdale Tavern is actually my family tavern. My great-grandfather built it, and it's been in our family ever since. My aunt and my cousin run it now, and all of my wife's family, as it turns out, are from Gratiot County. She didn't grow up there. She grew up in Lakeview. We went to school together, but that's their roots too. So it's a good fit for me.
So Montcalm County, and then now this redrawn area that is including this portion of Gratiot County. As you seek re-election, what are the voters telling you as an incumbent in this race? What do you identify as well as the key issues in the campaign?
Well, I think the key, I don't know necessarily campaign-wise what are the key issues. What I think the key issues, the concerns of the constituents are, number one, jobs. People want to find not just any job, but they want to find good jobs. And that's probably, it seems like the number one issue. And we've done a lot to further that cause. There were 800,000 jobs lost in what we considered the lost decade from 2000 to 2010. And since 2010, we've gained 300,000 jobs. And so we still have a ways to go. That's still a net loss, but we're on the right path. People say, well, they're not manufacturing jobs and they're never coming back because we've shipped them over the seas. Well, I would disagree with that, because if you go to the Michigan Manufacturing Association website, what they've told us is, again, we had a precipitous loss in manufacturing jobs in that lost decade. But since 2009, we've added 110,000 new manufacturing jobs. Now,
and how is that district fair? Because I've spoken with other candidates who have said, yes, overall, they recognize the statewide loss in population, the statewide loss but they might say in his or her particular district, we weathered the storm a little bit better. So if we look at District 70, and what are the folks telling you, or what have you seen in terms of the climate of, have we reshaped the economy? Have some of those small businesses been able to maintain through this stretch? How does the economic outlook?
Yeah, and that is the pertinent question for the 70th district. Okay, statewide, we've done some good things. What does that mean for us? And, and particularly when you look at Greenville and the loss of Electrolux, that was a huge loss to our economy. It was devastating for us. I mean, it turned us from maybe an upper middle class community to a poor community overnight. And with that were all the associated jobs that helped that particular industry. And so a solar plant was supposed to come in and be our salvation, and that was an abysmal failure. But we do have a bright spot in the future. Greenville's going to be gaining 300 jobs in that unisolar plant. A Chinese aluminum wheel manufacturing business is coming, and they promised 300 jobs. And I think it's going to be a good fit for our community. But not only that, as I talk to all the businesses around, and not just manufacturing, although I've had repeated tours and roundtable discussions with the leaders of those communities, but also when you talk about the builders and my industry, the excavators and agriculture. I mean, it's booming. I talk to people and they just can't seem to get enough help. And they're not just menial, low-skilled jobs anymore. Even when you think of the days of the family farm, typically you think about farmhand as just pretty low-skilled, but a lot of hard work, a lot of gratification by being outside all the time, but not a lot of requisite skills. And those days are gone. I mean, with the advancements of technology and even you get on a tractor nowadays. I don't think I could do that anymore. It's all GPS and I mean it's technology that I haven't even seen. And they're highly technical jobs and they're better paying jobs.
So for the climate to hold on to what is there, to diversify more and attract new business, perhaps to look at the issues of job training to better equip that workforce as these types of even traditional jobs that you noted are changing. What have you done already in the first 2 terms? What would you propose to do in a third to provide that climate, the best possible climate for that economic growth?
Well, I think the one thing we did was change the tax structure. We had a job-killing Michigan business tax. In the original version of that Michigan business tax, it wasn't so bad, and it was supposed to be the salvation for us from the small business tax that we had previously. And it was a pretty conservative plan until all of a sudden when it was done, then the final little kick to it was a surcharge. And what that was once you reached $300,000 in gross sales, you had this astronomical tax tacked on to your tax. And it was on gross receipts and not the money you kept. And so I put it in my world. Say I had a county drain that I bid on that was a $300,000 county drain. And I'm being facetious, but say I had $299,000 worth of material involved in that drain, such as seed and culverts and blacktop and whatever. It doesn't matter how much I kept. Even though the bulk of it was a pass-through income, and I would have only kept $1,000 of it, I was going to pay taxes on $300,000. But not only was I going to pay taxes on that when I filed my business tax forms, I was going to pay those taxes again when I filed my personal income tax forms. It was a job-killing tax it was wiping out our economy. Small businesses like mine were going under at an alarming rate. And it wasn't just the economy, it was that job-killing tax. So what we did is for corporate taxes, we put the corporate income tax rate in of 6%. But along with that corporate income tax of 6%, we eliminated all the loopholes, all the carve-outs that huge corporations were getting where they weren't paying any taxes because they had a tax system designed to carve them out of paying taxes. We eliminated them. But for S-corps and sole proprietorships and partnerships and LLCs, what we said was there's no reason to have redundancy in filing your taxes. You shouldn't have to file Michigan business tax and file a personal income tax because I am Outman Excavating, and Outman Excavating is me. And so what we said was the vehicle we're going to use to file those taxes, your business tax, is going to be your personal income tax form. And so even though, again, I file my personal income tax form with the wages and everything that I've taken from the business, I also, as part of that that personal income tax form, I put in the money that Outman Excavating has made, and I pay taxes on that. So it isn't like we eliminated taxes for businesses, just the vehicle we're using to pay those taxes is the personal income tax form. Eliminated redundancy, but made a fairer system where you aren't being double taxed. The other big thing that we've done for businesses recently was eliminate the personal property tax. And people have seen the ads that were run about that, and because it was a ballot issue. And that was a tax that, say I bought a hydraulic excavator. Well, not only did I pay taxes on that hydraulic excavator, my sales tax, which is exorbitant, but I also had to pay a yearly tax on it for the entire time I owned that. Now it would depreciate. My tax schedule would go down because of that, which again was a disincentive to buy a new piece of equipment, because all of a sudden, not only was I going to pay sales tax on that new piece of equipment, but I was going to pay a higher personal property tax rate because of the value of that equipment. So it was a disincentive to invest in my business, to grow my business. When you talk about manufacturing plants that have equipment that lasts way longer than my equipment, 50 years, some of these pieces of equipment, they were continually paying a tax on that every year, and it was killing people.
Well, for those efforts to work towards addressing those things to improve the business climate, in just our few seconds that we have left, if you wanted to leave the message with the voters, that message as they get set to go and make that vote on Election Day, what would that be?
The message on businesses, or just
the message to the voters as you seek their vote for re-election?
Well, first off, I would like to thank the voters for their trust in me, for electing me. And, it sounds cliche to say it's been an honor and a privilege. You hear that a lot, but it really has. It's been gratifying. It's been great to be that person that you can call and I can help. A lot of the stuff that we do in Lansing, the laws that we change to bring businesses back to the state and reform government and shrink spending and all those things are great and very important. But in my mind, the most gratifying part of this job is when somebody calls you, a constituent, and they're having trouble navigating the bureaucracy, such as unemployment issues or disability or any of those things, and I can be the tool that they can use. I can find the right answers. I can steer them in the right direction, and help them, improve the quality of their life. That's probably the most gratifying part of this job, and I'm honored to do it. And I would ask for your vote again. And thank you.
And we appreciate your time, and thanks very much. Good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time as well here on Meet the Candidates. We've been speaking with Representative Rick Outman, a Republican representative for Michigan's 70th House District, seeking re-election to a third term. We encourage all of you to go out and exercise your right to vote on November 4th.
This has been Meet the Candidates, a production of CMU Public Broadcasting. Both major party candidates were invited to participate in this series. For a complete listing of the air dates and times for this series, go to our website, wcmu.org.